Hello and welcome to episode 64 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. It is Saturday, December 24th, Christmas Eve, 2016. We'll be unwrapping presents at the end of the show for the Duke basketball program. But before we get into that, I'll introduce myself and my co-hosts. I am Sam Klein, coming to you this week from Vail, Colorado. I am joined by my usual co-hosts, Jason Evans, who I believe is at home in Atlanta. Yes, Jason?
I am. I am at home in Atlanta.
And Donald Wine, who is in Texas.
That is correct. Hello, everybody. And I am in lovely Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas, with my family for Christmas.
But Donald has been on the move this week.
Yes, I have.
That's right. Donald, where else have you been?
Well, I was in Cameron on Monday. That's a good start.
Very nice. Let's we'll get right into that. We have a couple things we want to cover today. There's obviously been a lot of news around Duke and the ACC this week, mainly Grayson Allen's suspension stemming from his third tripping incident of his college career, which happened on Wednesday night against Elon. And subsequently, the news out of Chapel Hill that UNC has received a third notice of allegations stemming from the cheating scandal of theirs that went on for a period of time that we can argue about. So what we'll do today to start is talk about the last few games for Duke, beginning with Donald's reaction from being there for the Tennessee State game. And then we'll have that lead into a discussion about Grayson Allen and all the issues surrounding him. And then we'll finish up with UNC. So does that sound good to you guys?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, but
Great.
We're not going to go for these were two games. These are not that they're meaningless, but let's talk about them quickly. Everyone wants to talk about Grayson Allen and the cheaters over in Chapel Hill. Those are the only two things happening in the college basketball universe if you're a Duke fan, or anyone for that matter right now. So, yeah,
so
Donald, tell us about Tennessee State, man.
So I got a last-minute ticket to go down to Durham on Monday night for the Tennessee State game. So I drove down from D.C. It takes about 4 hours, and the only thing that I wanted to do was check out kind of the new parts of Cameron. As we all know, Cameron and Brooksfield at Wallace Wade Stadium have undergone massive renovations, and this was my first time actually checking out both. So I got into town a little bit early and was able to walk around the new plaza that there is between Cameron and the football stadium, and it looks magnificent. A year ago, it was basically a pile of rubble, and you could see kind of the inner workings of what was going to be the finished product. But the Blue Devil Tower just looks amazing. The plaza, connecting the two stadiums is very different than what it used to be. There's a lot of steps and a lot of vantage points that you can see into the stadium and give a nice little experience of what they're doing. They're actually undergoing more renovations this winter and spring on the other side of the football stadium, namely where the president's box was. And I think they're upgrading the bathroom situation on that side of the stadium as well. But it looks really great. I was glad that I was able to get down there. This is a streak that's gone back to my freshman year of college. I've seen every single Duke team play since 2000, at least one time in Cameron. So and also in every calendar year. So both streaks continue in that regard. And I think it was really cool that I was able to get down to see the new parts of everything. Now the inside of Cameron, it's just weird. Like you kind of walk in and my instincts were to go the normal routes that I normally take in Cameron, and a lot of those on the backside have changed because there's more staircases for added access to upstairs. There's actually a little bit more of a hallway so that you can get into the sections 18 and 19. And 17 a lot easier, so it's a lot of more room. It doesn't feel as cramped in the hallways as it used to back in the day. But that's also kind of a little nitpicky thing that some people may appreciate and some people may be longing for the original. But all in all, it was a great experience. I love the new stadium. I want to get back down there hopefully in the next couple of months. And it wasn't a bad game. So the game transitioning into it was kind of a game. It was the first game back from a long layoff for finals, and I'll kick it to you guys, but it seemed like just everybody was off that game. There was not a lot of flow. Tennessee State came to play, but in the end we pulled it off, but it was just kind of one of those games that you could see the rust in everybody from Harry Giles debuting to even Grayson and Luke just did not have the stuff that they usually do. Sam, what did you think?
Yeah, I had the same impression that you did, just that it took the team a little while to get into rhythm, and also that Tennessee State was playing pretty aggressively. They were obviously excited to be playing in Cameron, and there was, the ESPN did that whole special in the middle of the game about Tennessee State arriving the day before to really get their bearings and get a sense for what it was going to be like in there. So I was disappointed, certainly, that the team, against an opponent who's ranked in the hundreds in KenPom, wasn't able to pull away early. But I was prepared to chalk it up just to the rust of being away from finals, and also, sort of the lingering stress about Harry Giles coming back and how he was going to perform. And honestly, we didn't really see anything from him in that Tennessee State game. I don't think he logged I think he logged a 4 trillion in that game.
No, he did attempt a shot.
The field goal.
He attempted a shot.
He did attempt.
His first touch of the ball. Yeah, his first touch of the ball.
That's right. Oh, right. A rather long one, as I recall, right?
Correct. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. So he's, and even from the Elon game, he's still a work in progress as far as getting him back integrated with this team and getting in the flow of college basketball. So that was challenging for him. I was, unlike Jason Tatum's debut, where he seemed like he was more in rhythm, and certainly there are different cases. Harry Giles hasn't played a competitive game of basketball in 2 years. Jason Tatum was healthy in the preseason. So slightly different scenarios going on there. But, I thought, okay, we can chalk this one up to them being rusty from finals and all those other factors. Elon was much more concerning to me because the same problems persisted 2 days later when you'd think their legs should be under them. And Elon is at least by the metrics, even worse than Tennessee State is. That was kind of my general take from that. Jason, what did you want to add to those games?
Well, I mean, it's always tough to evaluate the games right after the exam break, because the guys, they still practice and stuff, but the team really does focus on making sure that they are where they need to be in the classroom around this time of year, because exams are really important. You don't want guys failing classes and being ineligible, and also this is Duke and we take our academics seriously. So I think every year we see a game where Duke performs way worse than you would have expected, just looks rusty, looks maybe a little less focused than they should, because the guys have been expending their mental energy in the classroom as they should. But I think, if I can bundle both Tennessee State and Elon together, I was a little surprised at the fact that it lingered for 2 games. It seemed like we played okay in spurts, but for the most part, it just wasn't the effort we're used to seeing from Duke. We weren't nearly as crisp offensively in either one of those games as we typically have been. Against Elon, we hit 36% of our shots. Against Tennessee State, we hit 37% of our shots.
And we trailed in the second half of both games.
Exactly. I was just going to say the exact same thing. And I'll tell you something that really, really concerns me. After the Elon game, and we're not going to get into Grayson Allen yet, but after the Elon game, Luke Kennard in the locker room was interviewed, and he said that some of the guys aren't really buying in yet, that they aren't playing as a team, that they're playing more as individuals. I want to read you guys the quote that Luke Kennard said. He said, "We have to become a group that is all consumed in just Duke. And by that I'm saying we have to buy in. Every guy on our team, inside, they have individual goals. And that's a great thing to have. But sometimes those individual goals may tend to sneak up and take over what it's really all about. And that's about winning as a group." So, guys, that's a terrifying quote from the guy who's been Duke's best player this year.
My friend sent me that quote, and this, I guess it was shortly after the game when he heard it, and he sent me that quote, and I was just like, the first question was like, who is he talking about? And there's a lot of signs that it was pointing towards 1 or 2 players on the team, but just the fact that he's mentioning that in general in December is not good. It's not a good quote.
Oh yeah,
And he's not one of the captains, right? I mean, Luke Kennard's a sophomore. He's obviously experienced. He played most of the minutes last year, and he's been the best player on the team this year. But it's concerning that that's coming from one of the underclassmen when presumably Duke has 3 upper-class players in Allen, Jones, and Jefferson who should be the ones leading this team and who should be saying things like that and should be getting in guys' ears faster than it takes the problems to seep out onto the court and to then manifest themselves in pedestrian 10-point wins against teams that aren't going to make the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and let me add this. So the fact that Luke Kennard said it publicly does not mean that Jefferson and Jones and Allen aren't saying it privately or individually to guys. We don't know. And
certainly not. Yeah,
and you can
that's fair. Right,
and you can make an argument that maybe it isn't the smartest thing for Luke Kennard to be airing Duke's laundry in public. That Coach K especially really believes in what happens in the locker room stays in the locker room, and and these guys not giving anything away in the outside world. But
although Jason, he might have just been participating in the Festivus airing of grievances, which should have occurred yesterday.
Yes, that's very, very, very possible. I will say it is hard not to feel like this year's team is operating under like some kind of curse or something. I mean, we've gotten little glimpses of what could be, but especially look in the preseason when Tatum and Bolden were both starters in the preseason before they got hurt. When we kept on hearing that Harry Giles was going to be the second coming of Chris Webber, before Grayson Allen's hurt toe and perhaps other issues took him from being the preseason player of the year to a guy who's at best the third best player in the team and maybe even worse than that. It's starting to feel a little bit like one of these years where everything that's supposed to happen doesn't happen and things never come together. Now, it's early. I'm not pushing the panic button by any stretch of the imagination. But it's hard not to look at what's been going on with this team and go, wow, geez, is something like, is this going to be one of these years where we go, God, it just never happened for us? I hope that's not the case, but I want to point out a couple things. This club has yet to score 100 points on anyone. Not that that matters, but, I mean, remember in the preseason, Donald said we were going to score 100 points 10 times. I said we were going to score 100 points 7 times.
And we still can. There's more than 10 games left in the season, so don't sell my prediction short.
Yeah, but the season has not been what we thought, and I for some reason have gone back. I'm recalling 2014. Do you guys remember who the preseason number 1 team was in 2014? It was Kentucky.
Probably.
It
right.
was Kentucky.
Who was on that Kentucky team?
That was the Harrison twins were freshmen, and they had a few guys that were returning players. They were the preseason number 1 team. By the final poll of the regular season, they were completely unranked. They'd gone 24-10. They made the NCAA tourney, but they were a number 8 seed. This was the team that was preseason number 1.
And then they ultimately made the Final Four.
They made the final
regular season.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. They went on a NCAA tournament run, and they made the final game. But I imagine this feels a little bit like what that felt like for them, which was everyone was so excited. Everyone was sure it was going to be a great, amazing team, and the regular season wasn't what they expected. Now, it's worth pointing out that Duke hasn't even had a bad regular season yet. We've only lost 1 game, and
to another top 5 team by a buzzer beater.
We've beaten some fairly decent teams. We've looked really good. Everyone says we're still absolutely a number 1 seed and the favorite to win the national title, and we're still just barely getting guys back. Giles is going to do nothing but get better. There's no question about that. Bolden, a lot of people are concerned about the way Bolden has been playing. He supposedly still has a walking boot that he's using a lot of the time, that he's unable to, he's not practicing fully yet, probably not practicing very much at all. So I feel like.
And Allen wasn't practicing much between games either when he had that injury. He was giving him the Seth Curry treatment, where he would basically not practice and then play on games.
Well, and that means that the practices haven't been at the level, the intensity that Coach K wants them to be at. We haven't had enough players to have full practices yet. The notion, it's easy to look at this and go, oh, because of the injuries and such, these guys are a month or so behind or 2 months behind. Well, the reality is the whole team is probably a month or two behind. So like I said, I'm not hitting the panic button, but it's hard not to, at this moment right now, feel like, oh my God, are we cursed?
And with that, and I think it's an astute observation. With that, can we talk about the worst thing I think that's happened to the team so far this year, which is Grayson Allen's behavioral issues?
Oh yeah.
So
to be honest, I was going to say I
ahead.
fully expect everyone who's been listening to the podcast probably skipped everything we just did and came to this moment, because this is all that Duke fans are talking about right now.
So let me set the stage here just a little bit, knowing that we do need to get into it. Wednesday night against Elon, Grayson Allen was trying to defend Elon guard Steven St. Anna and pulled a move on him that we've seen him do a couple times last season, which was that he tripped him with his leg. Santa Anna fell over. Grayson Allen, for a moment, sort of feigned frustration that something had gotten away from him, and then he was sent to the bench. They reviewed the call. They called a technical on him. And while he was sitting on the bench, he seemed really upset, was screaming at himself, and the coaching staff was trying to calm him down. It was not a pretty scene for Allen or for the Duke team. And then after the game, Allen was initially pulled from the locker room before the media came in. Coach K had him go apologize to the Elon player and the Elon head coach. That night, Coach K got a little testy with the media, said that he didn't want people disciplining his players for him. He was going to handle that the way that he knows how. And then subsequently, the very next morning, pretty early in the morning, Coach K came out and announced that Allen would be suspended indefinitely. This was Duke's last game against non-conference opposition this season. They start ACC play next week against Virginia Tech. So all games from here on out are conference games that some number of which Grayson Allen will miss until he has sorted out whatever issues Coach K seems to think he has. So there's kind of a lot to unpack here, because there was what happened on the court, there was what happened on the sideline, and there was kind of the national reaction to it. And it was the same night that Kentucky was playing Louisville in what was an excellent game. I hope you guys watched it afterwards. But that game was totally overshadowed by Grayson Allen and the Duke program and Coach K. So I'll give it to Donald first. Donald, just your overall impression of the Grayson Allen situation, and feel free to touch on any of the different pockets of it where you want.
So I'm going to touch on two things, and then I'll kick it over to Jason. So the first part I want to talk about is this is a problem now. This is something that obviously
you think?
Yeah, it's. I mean, it's something that you can't excuse, you can't defend. And it's problematic that this is happening again. We thought this was in the past. We thought this was something that he had put behind him from last year and was ready to move on. And that's clearly has not been the case. So that is disappointing. That's easy to say, so I'm going to put that out there in front. The one thing that I really want to focus on, and this is having said all that about not being able to defend in something that's reprehensible, I will defend him against the media, because I think that if this had happened to another player who played for another team, the reaction would not have been like he shot the Pope. And I think that was problematic of the media as well. I think Coach K did the right thing in reviewing the incident, having a calm head about it, and making the right decision the next day. The fact that people in the media were basically calling for him to be suspended from anywhere from 2 games to the rest of the season, for something that we had, if you think about the actual incident, just the tripping incident, just the one separated from everything else, we saw something worse happen on Monday Night Football the day before, or 2 days prior, where a guy punched another guy on the field of play and was ejected, and there was no other talk about suspension or fines or anything like that. He punched the guy with his fist and was ejected, and that was the end of it. They said, "Dumb play, let's move on." It sounded when I landed halfway through the game and turned on my phone, and from the text messages and the social media messages I had received, it seemed like Grayson Allen had shot somebody. And I think that reaction from the media, that reaction from fans who clearly have it out for us or out for Grayson, I think did him a disservice. I think it did the team disservice. And I'm talking about the players on the team, because they have to answer the reaction, and no matter what, the reaction, the answer is never going to satisfy those people. And I think that's a terrible situation to put those players in. I think it's a terrible situation to put Grayson Allen in. I mean, he was obviously remorseful after the game, but I don't like the way the media reacted to it, and I don't like how it spawned all of this, and how people are now saying that. I mean, now people were talking about that he's suspended. Oh, well, of course Coach K would suspend him for the Boston Colleges and the Virginia Techs of the world. He's not going to suspend him for the rest of the season against UNC. So they got what they asked for, and now they're pissed off that it's not at the right time.
And by the way, how absurd is that argument? Because I've heard that as well. Yeah. I want to be like Coach K had some control over when Grayson Allen was going to wig out and trip a guy and get suspended. Like he went, oh wait, this is the perfect moment. It's so stupid. But can I really react quickly to something you were talking about? Yes, go ahead.
That was the end of my reaction. Yes.
I think Grayson Allen's reaction on the bench, which a lot of people have talked about, you called a temper tantrum. I think that was Grayson Allen coming to grips with and reacting to what had just happened, and his awareness of how the media and how people would see him. Grayson Allen was sitting there, and he knew that what he had just done had taken his hopes of being the National Player of the Year. Think of how significant it is to be National Player of the Year in college basketball. One guy wins it every year. It is really, really hard to do. It is a huge, huge deal. Every single guy who's won National Player of the Year in college basketball is a household name. He knew that his hopes of winning Player of the Year nationally were gone. His hopes of winning ACC Player of the Year may be gone at this point. He is going to endure endless scrutiny and questions, Donald, like you were saying. He almost instantly knew that he would carry this with him for years, maybe for his entire public life. I mean, think about this. He could win a second ring. He could become a first-round NBA draft pick. He could have a hugely successful NBA career, and he would still hear tripping jokes all the time. He will forever be, for the rest of his life, he will be the guy who trips other players. That's so sad and unfair. But it's on him. It's on him. He is now, really quick, he's now alongside DeMarcus Cousins and Draymond Green as the biggest bad boys in basketball. He doesn't deserve that, and that's not who he is.
Let me interject for just a second. You just mentioned DeMarcus Cousins. Literally the night before this, he was ejected from a game. It was a wild scene. He was first ejected from a game because they thought he had spit his mouthpiece out at the opposing team bench after he was going off for 52 points. He throws the biggest tantrum, sprints to the locker room, and then they meet and decide that no, he didn't actually spit his mouthpiece out. It just fell out of his mouth. He is now unejected. And people were laughing at that reaction. They were laughing at the fact that he was basically cursing out the refs, that he threw a tantrum, that he ran off the court, and then came back onto a hero's welcome. And then the next night, a young kid does basically the same thing on the bench, and people vilify him. And like I said, in my earlier statement, it's because of the jersey that he was wearing that the reactions were so different. Draymond Green, people laugh at the fact that he kicks people every single night. It's almost a joke, and you come to expect it. If you think about back in college, there's another great athlete who had a tendency to hit players in the groin. Chris Paul, that has followed him to the NBA. We don't talk about that. I think that the jersey has a lot to do with the reaction, and I think that is also unfair.
Yeah, I was saying to friends right before the game, because I had a friend ask me, because Allen had the issue from the game before that wasn't it wasn't like a tripping thing. But one of my friends asked me why he's such a jerk, a friend who's not a Duke fan. And I was like, I don't know. I don't think he's really a jerk. I think he gets a bad rap. And, the tripping things from last year were certainly bad looks for him, but they happen. If you were watching those games, they were games in which, he was getting fouled all over the place and they weren't calling it because of his aggressive style of play. And he'll get it together and he'll be fine. And then boom, 20 minutes after I send that to my friend, he commits what I think was a really bad move on his part. I didn't get the sense from watching the Elon game that, the Elon players were tough and they were, playing a good game against Duke, but they weren't doing it in a dirty way. And certainly not with the same aggressiveness and with the same lack of attention from the referees that I thought happened in those couple of ACC games last year that Allen was caught tripping in. So I thought that this was like the worst look for him, and then it just carried on and on and on. And I not on the same stage, but I have a bit of personal experience with behavioral issues, let's say, and I have, when I was a kid, I reacted to a couple situations the way that Allen reacted on the bench, where it's not that moment when you make the mistake that's bad, but it looks even worse when you realize the results of your actions, when you realize that the mistake you've made, like Jason said, is gonna follow you for a while and is going to linger, and that's what Allen was reacting to, and I could see it. That was the worst part for him, and it was the worst part for all of us because as Jason said, it was that realization that now this is a thing that isn't going away, and that folks won't stop talking about, even if we stop talking about it here. And I imagine that we here on the Duke Basketball Report podcast will stop talking about it at some point, because he'll come back and he'll be a good player, and Duke has an interesting season ahead of them. But national media types, and it didn't matter which sports media outlet you opened on Wednesday night or Thursday morning or even into today, ESPN, USA Today, CBS, everything, they were all talking about Grayson Allen. They were all giving their opinions, and most of the opinions were the kid needs to be suspended and needs to be suspended for a long time. And that some of the reactions might be over the top and might be unnecessary. There was a lot of chatter right after the game, because if you flipped over to the Kentucky game, Jason Williams was on the halftime show at the Kentucky game and was talking about how Allen needed to be suspended for 5 games. And a lot of folks were reacting to that, maybe sounding excessive, but that's the tone that the general college basketball media has taken, and Allen is going to have to deal with that, and it really stinks for him.
I was going to say really quick. I want to address the penalty, and in a minute I want to get back and talk about
Sure.
What caused it and Grayson and who he is as a person. But at first I was shocked that K let him play in the second half, but then I realized that Coach K doesn't have instant replay to look at during the game, so he didn't really necessarily know exactly what had happened, and I think that's why we got a very different reaction from him the next morning. But I want to praise the master of all things, Coach K, for what I think is a really smart decision of this indefinite suspension. No one in the media can really scream, that's not strict enough, he didn't do it the right way. I mean, sure, rival fans are going to say stuff, but of course they are. This is Duke, and there are people who hate Duke. But the media and the collective voice of college basketball, an indefinite suspension is the perfect response. You can't criticize Coach K. You can't criticize Duke in any way for doing that kind of suspension. It allows this to die down a bit before he announces when Grayson will return. Personally, I think 2 games would be an appropriate suspension. I mean, remember that we've got a 10-day break between games now, from the 21st to the 31st. So it's going to feel like it's been a while before Duke even plays Virginia Tech. And then I could see sitting him one additional game, the game against Georgia Tech that we have, right? Is it Georgia Tech or BC? It's Georgia Tech, then BC, right?
Georgia Tech.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I could see sitting him against Georgia Tech. And then the reason I don't want it to be 3 games, first of all, I think that's excessive. Draymond Green in the NBA kicks people in the nuts 2 or 3 or 4 times and gets, a 1-game suspension at some point. The notion that Grayson Allen would get more than a game or 2 seems crazy to me. But even beyond that, I want it to be no more than 2 games because I want his first game back to be in Cameron. I don't want it to be on the road. I think that'd be really, good for him to be embraced by the crowd, which he will be, because road games for Grayson Allen and for this Duke team are going to be extra difficult.
Be fun.
No.
Yes,
yeah.
Every single rival fan of Duke, and more importantly, every single team we face will do everything they can to get into Grayson's head. There'll be taunts. Other teams are going to give him tons of dirty, cheap shots. They will, because they want him to get angry and they want to provoke a reaction.
Just like last year, if you recall that Louisville game where he got punched in the chest and scrambling for a loose ball, and Coach K almost had split into 2 because the refs tried to call a foul on Grayson Allen for being punched. And the thing about it is you can't really react to it. You can't sit there and say, oh, well, he's getting a bad rap and guys were exploiting that on a nightly basis. And I think that's kind of why, we had some of those incidents last year.
Yeah, everyone is going to try and get a reaction out of him, try and get a rise out of him because they know it would be a really big deal and that it could be the end of his season, could be the end of his career. If Grayson Allen trips another player, it could be very difficult for Duke to bring him back at all. And I'm serious about that. So I wonder if this may become something where, a bunker mentality where the entire team comes together and rallies around protecting Grayson Allen because he can't protect himself anymore. And I have this hope that maybe these guys will come together as a team even more because one of theirs has been, is like I say, is unable to defend himself, and that they need to defend him for them. And for a team that may be struggling with some chemistry problems, maybe this is an important defining moment for them that will make them gel a little bit better. I also want to point out regarding that really quickly. So supposedly, Emil Jefferson and Jason Tatum are spending Christmas together. That Jefferson took Tatum home with him, and supposedly Matt Jones and Marcus Bolden are spending Christmas together.
It's reversed.
Now, I don't know.
Tatum, Jefferson.
Oh, I got it backwards.
Yeah, he's going to St. Louis to be with Tatum Stanley.
Oh, okay. But it's that player combination. I think that's really interesting. The 2 of the team captains are going with 2 of the freshmen, and maybe that's part of Coach K's way of getting this chemistry together a little bit better. I think we may see a different Duke team coming out of the break. Not that the Duke team we've seen hasn't been great, but I hope maybe the team may really come together and rally around this moment and rally around each other. And perhaps this team will be the world beater that we expected them to be.
I just wanted to add on the topic of the suspension that the other good thing about it being an indefinite suspension is that Coach K controls when Allen comes back, and Duke controls, sort of the news about that. There will be certainly speculation about which game he'll come back for, but I wouldn't be surprised if he just shows up in a game at some point down the road, and with no announcement. And so the first opportunity, so they won't have, it won't be like it was with Harry Giles, where ESPN was able to send the full complement of its college basketball media to the game to be monitoring it and talking about it. Because honestly, against Tennessee State, it seemed like on the broadcast it was a distraction from what was actually happening on the floor. Like Jeff Goodman was only there to be reporting about Grayson Allen, not about Grayson Allen, about
Harry Giles.
And they had to, they ran a whole segment about it, and it was a big deal. And then he ultimately played 4 minutes, missed one shot, and did nothing else. So ESPN will only be able to sort of preempt their coverage of Allen returning to the game, which means that the first time that Duke will really be able to address it will be in a hopefully calm post-game press conference, whenever that may be, 1, 2, 3 games down the road. And Coach K will have a statement prepared, and the whole thing will be a lot smoother, rather than having the ACC come out and say it's going to be 2 or 3 games, whatever, and then having everybody react to it before the game, and having everybody get riled up to see Grayson Allen. It might even help Coach K if he if he dresses Allen for each of the games that he's suspended, just because the suspension is a Duke thing. There's no sort of official notion to it. It's like a coach's decision did not play. So I think that that's another aspect of it that Coach K is handling really well. And I should say that I agreed with Jason about how Coach K didn't have the benefit of seeing the instant replay during halftime or like immediately following the game to see how bad it was. He was in game.
And it's not that bad. By the way, it's not that bad.
Sure.
I mean, it's bad. It's bad because of the context of he's done this before. It's as an isolated singular incident. I mean, it's a complete non-story.
Right. But that he did at his first ability, which was basically the very next morning, come out and say what he thought about the replay because he had opportunity to watch it and digest it and think about it. And it was probably the most level-headed version of that we could get in a timely fashion.
And he also said if he had seen the reaction in real time, he would have had changes about, how he played the second half, and basically insinuated that he would have kept him on the bench longer to start the second half if he had seen seen the tantrum in real time. So, again, like a lot of people were questioning why he threw him back in the game. And like you guys said, it's because he probably didn't see the reaction. He probably wasn't told about it because they were focusing on trying to win that ball game and not necessarily on a temper tantrum. So, I think everything that Coach K did was perfect in the fact that he responded the way he wanted to respond when he got the full fledged information, and there was nobody, and he made the right call for the team and the program. So I think I think you can't really people who were talking about Coach K and why he did this and that. I think he had the perfect reaction, and I think that's what every coach should be doing instead of reacting to what the media says may or may not have happened.
Hey,
are you guys?
I was going to say, can I go back? There are two things I want to talk about regarding what caused this.
Sure.
Hey, Jason, put on your amateur psychiatrist hat. I have any freaking idea what caused it. But having said that, I have no freaking idea what caused it. I'm going to talk about what caused it, because that's just how I roll. So the first thing I want to mention is the phantom foul in the Tennessee State game, which sort of thrust Grayson into this spotlight. National conversation about Duke gets all the calls and Grayson Allen, the All-American, gets the benefit of all the calls because of some really stupid ESPN announcers. And I think it was Doris Burke. They're watching the replay of this play against Tennessee State where Grayson Allen is rushing full speed toward the basket. And as he goes up, his foot gets hit by one of the Tennessee State players. And when you are going full speed at the basket and you get touched at all, it impacts you. It throws your body off. But the stupid ESPN announcers don't see the foot get hit. They just see that they're just like looking at the top half of both the players' bodies, and they go, there's no foul there. How did the refs call a foul? Well, the refs called a foul because contact was made and it threw Grayson Allen to the ground, you idiots. But this becomes like this thing because Doris Burke or whoever it was said, there's no foul there. I can't believe this. Duke gets all the... Because she makes a thing out of this, everyone starts talking about it. And I think for Grayson Allen, it probably set him on edge a little bit. That like suddenly he does nothing wrong. He gets bumped, his foot bumps into a guy while he's on a fast break. And I could see it being a no call, fine. But it wasn't like no contact occurred, which is what ESPN implied. And I wonder if Grayson was sort of like, oh my God, now, suddenly I'm in the spotlight again for the wrong reasons. Go ahead.
And it's not like when he, when he reacted and got the foul call and everything, it's not like he sold it in such an outrageous way. If you're going to blame anyone for making a bad call, it's the refs.
Exactly. It's not his fault.
Players overreact to contact all the time. That's just part of the game. And Grayson Allen has a particularly aggressive style of play that dictates that he's gonna launch towards the basket pretty fast and from pretty far away. And if he gets touched in midair, I don't know what that feels like because I can't jump nearly that high. I imagine that it would affect the way that you land on the ground, and then he he got that foul call and just kind of got up and took his foul shots. He didn't crow about it. He didn't make a huge display. But because it's him and nobody else, it sort of got blown out of proportion the next day by, again, general college basketball media. And as you say, it wasn't really his fault.
No, and so the other thing I want to talk about is I was really struck by the tweets and comments we heard from reporters, folks from ESPN and elsewhere who have met Grayson Allen, who know Grayson Allen a little bit. They all, like to a man, they all describe him as a guy who off the court is really quiet, very respectful. They say he's almost shy. He works really, really hard in the classroom. This is a guy who's on course to graduate from Duke in 3 years as a psychology major. He's an academic All-American. He went to an elite prep school where he was where he graduated cum laude. He had great grades in high school. He has great grades at Duke. This is a guy who he is on the basketball floor and who he is off the court appear to be two very, very different people. And I wonder a little bit if he hasn't learned that he needs to turn up his intensity and his competitive fire to become a great basketball player. And, maybe that isn't really who he is. And maybe that's part of why he can't control it as well on the court. Maybe that's why these incidents sort of happen to him, because this isn't, there are plenty of guys out there who are aggressive players on the floor, and then you see them off the floor, off the court in real life, and they're the same kind of guy. And for Grayson Allen, I think it's 180 degrees different. He, who he is when he's not playing basketball like his hair's on fire, and which is how Grayson Allen plays and how he needs to play. And I wonder if maybe because of that, it's harder for him to control this competitive fire that drives him when he's on the court. And you have to wonder a little bit, as he gets this under control, does it affect his game at all? I sure hope not, because God, he is a wonderful, wonderful, amazing player to watch. But I don't know. So that's the other thing that I sort of wonder about. That's all I got on this crazy.
I mean, you see that a lot in sports, not just basketball, where guys are quiet off the court, but like when they step on the court or on the field, it's like a switch, and they know that the intensity that is required there is a lot different than the intensity that's required in life. We actually talk a lot about the opposite, where especially in football, where players carry that intensity off the court, off the field into their daily life, and messes up something.
Bad thing.
So,
yeah,
right,
it's a really bad thing,
and it's a really bad thing on that side. So I don't want to follow him for being quiet off the court and being aggressive on the court, because a lot of players do that and they do it very well. And I think that is part of. I think all this is part of becoming a man. Like he's 21 years old, 22 years old, and he's still learning. And I think that's fine. Problem is he's learning in the scope of 200 million people, basically denouncing his every move every single day. So that's obviously something that none of us can really relate to. But it's still something that he's going to learn about, and this is going to be hopefully a lesson that he can take and build his character going forward.
All right, I think we've covered the Grayson Allen story. Are you guys satisfied? And can we move on to UNC?
Oh,
yes.
UNC, yeah, you up next.
Oh
All
boy.
right. So on Thursday, amid all the madness of the Grayson Allen story, it came out that UNC was receiving a third notice of allegations related to the cheating scandal of theirs that may have started as far back as 1993, continued as long as 2011, perhaps, involving some fraudulent courses, mostly in the Afro and African American Studies department. It touched a lot of different athletic programs, and the NCAA has struggled to really get a grasp of this, both because the scope is so wide and because UNC has kind of stonewalled at every opportunity. They've paid a lot of lawyers a lot of money to have this thing drag out and hopefully go away. So the latest NOA sort of is the NCAA's pushback against UNC's attempt to sort of throw the whole thing out for procedural issues, and because they think that the NCAA is overstepping their bounds. And before I get too detailed into it, I would like to throw it to Jason Evans, our resident UNC cheating scandal expert and I would say enthusiast. So Jason, why don't you just give us your take on the news this week from UNC that sadly Grayson Allen has been overshadowing, but is big news in college basketball.
Well, like the previous notice of allegations, there are 5 charges labeled against UNC here, and 4 of them are largely the same. But one of them has been changed, and has been changed in such a significant way. There used to be a charge of failure to monitor that said, UNC didn't do a good job monitoring its academic progress, academic advising guys. That charge has been changed, and it now is a charge of unethical conduct and extra benefits. And let me tell you, unethical conduct and extra benefits is a heck of a lot worse than failure to monitor. And I want to read you guys 24 words. I counted 24 words that changed everything. You ready for them? Here they are. In the amended notice of allegations, the NCAA says, quote, many at-risk student athletes, particularly in the sports of football and men's basketball, use these courses for the purposes of ensuring their continuing NCAA academic eligibility. Many football and men's basketball players use these courses to stay eligible. That is what the NCAA has said. Now, that's what all of us knew. We were all aware of that. You had to have been hiding under a rock not to know that that's exactly what this whole thing has been about for the past 20 plus, 30 plus years. It's been about taking UNC football and basketball players and making it easy for them to stay eligible. They don't have to worry about going to classes because that just doesn't matter to UNC. Well, now the NCAA has finally actually stated what this thing is about. And what this thing is about is something that is really, really bad for UNC in terms of the penalties that are going to come down. If that line stays, if they don't find a way, if UNC doesn't find a way to argue some silly jurisdictional or procedural argument to change that line, student athletes in the sports of football and men's basketball use these courses for the purposes of ensuring their NCAA eligibility. If that does not change, there is absolutely no question that NCAA title banners for the basketball team go away, that wins, that bowl games, all this stuff goes away for football and basketball. You're talking about taking probably close to a decade of wins, and they disappear. And
Jason, did you see the updated timeline that they're investigating now for this NOA? It goes from the fall of 2002 to the spring of 2011. So that's 2 men's basketball championships in that time.
2005 and 2009. 2005 and 2009 right. Banners. This charge puts those banners squarely in the spotlight, squarely in the crosshairs, I should say. I don't see how you can say, okay, we are accusing you. We are saying that the evidence says that you did this to make your athletes stay eligible. That's what this line says. I don't see how the NCAA looks at that line and as part of the punishment doesn't say, by the way, those ineligible athletes, because they're not eligible if they don't take these classes, those ineligible athletes, any game they participated in did not happen. If you won that game, it's vacated. It's not forfeited, but it doesn't exist. This is terrible news for Carolina, and thank God that they were so stupid, because what they had done, everyone knows the story now about how this happened, how this change happened. UNC made some arguments to the enforcement committee, to the enforcement folks at the NCAA, and they said, you're not really able to judge classes, and so you can't do these kind of things. And the enforcement agency bought those arguments from UNC. And so that's why we had the first amended notice of allegations. that was really weak. And this is the one that came out over the summer, and all of us went, "Oh my God, they're not going to do anything to UNC." We were horrified at it. And UNC had won at that point, but winning wasn't enough for them. They then wanted to have this argument before the Committee of Infractions, this procedural hearing. And at that procedural hearing, UNC showed so much hubris and was so sort of arrogant in how they were making their arguments that the Committee on Infractions said, "Wait a second, screw you. We're going back and we are revising things." And that's why UNC is in this bad situation now. And I think it is clear that the Committee on Infractions, which, by the way, is made up of some former coaches, of athletic directors, of university presidents, it's made up of the teams that play against UNC. And that's how it should be. It's your peers. And those are the folks who went, "Wait a second, you cannot bully us around, Carolina. You cannot tell us that this was not about making athletes eligible by having them take BS classes." And the Committee on Infractions has already decided. They've decided they're going to bring the hammer down in Carolina. And good for them, because the enforcement agency at the NCAA clearly decided it was not prepared to take that action. But the Committee on Infractions, they're going to bring it. And I can't wait. Now, it's probably 6 months away from happening at least. But when it happens, it's going to be bad. All right, I'll stop for a second.
There's a 3-month time for 90 days for UNC to respond to the current allegations, even though they came out very briefly with some words. Bubba Cunningham, the AD, said, and I have the quote here: "I think it makes it really difficult for my institution that's going to face a group that can act as the investigator, the prosecutor, and the judge. I think it's patently unfair, and I think that we need to consider, not just in this case, but on a national basis, this entire infractions process." So he's a little peeved at the way this whole thing has gone down, and certainly you can understand his frustration with it. But as you said, it'll be many months still. No, well, just to say that it'll be a while now before they really sort this out, because UNC continues to have this attitude towards the infractions committee that what they're doing is wrong, not based on the specific allegations, but based on their jurisdiction and all these things. And go ahead, react to that.
Yeah, Bubba Cunningham, have you no shame? I can't believe he comes out with a statement. He doesn't deny anything. UNC has never once said these things didn't happen. All they've argued is, "Oh yeah, these things happened, but you can't punish us for them."
But you can't catch us.
It is right. It's so offensive. It is just I can barely even speak about it. I can't believe that Bubba Cunningham's statement was all about jurisdictional issues and they shouldn't have changed the charges. He doesn't deny a thing. He just says the NCAA shouldn't be allowed to punish UNC. He has no shame. He has no shame, and it's offensive.
All right, go ahead, Donald. Your reaction.
So first of all, shout out the NCAA for the Thursday afternoon Grayson Allen news dump, and just kind of throwing this out there, thinking we weren't going to find it. Yo, NCAA, we were going to find this one. I'm pretty sure Jason Evans has a Google alert set up anytime UNC and notice allegations pops up on the internet. But it was weird. I know before this podcast we were all talking about how we're going to react to this Grayson Allen story, and then boom, we're like, oh, well, this podcast just got more interesting. So I think the one thing to unpack is this: like, for the fan outside of UNC, I feel like we've been talking about this thing for the better part of a decade. I mean, even like 4 days ago, they released those allegations against Rutgers, and they're probably going to finish that one up, it feels like, faster than this will come to resolution. I mean, we've heard, in just this year, the NCAA has released notice of allegations against Baylor, who was it? Louisville, Rutgers, and I think even Notre Dame, and I think they might have finally finished that Boise State stuff from like a few years back, like the little small like hey, we took a kid out to dinner that we shouldn't have, like that type of thing. And still this thing lingers, and so I'm glad that they reinstituted this stuff against the basketball team and the football team, because as you guys said, this is exactly why we're here. As Marshawn Lynch would say, you know why we're here. It seems ridiculous that, one, that this has taken so long for them to finally arrive at what we already knew had been happening for the better part of 20 years. And two, I don't understand why UNC continues to be defiant about this. Like I was looking at their cute little website about their commitment to excellence and how they have a response, and that response is going to win the day. And I'm like, yo, man, like, you literally let guys cheat for 2 decades. Like, if you think about it, like, begrudgingly put yourself in the foot of a kid who is just a normal UNC student. Just the fact that people are clowning them and they had nothing to do with this. The fact that there's players on this team or whatever, like next year or the year after, who legitimately can say that they had nothing to do with this. And they're going to be punished for it, because for 2 decades, UNC has prided the Carolina way, and people bought into it. And when the house of cards fell, they were standing on the ashes saying, nope, we're still safe. We're still covered. And I think that just kind of shows why the NCAA just needs to go ahead and just like lay the Thor hammer. Like, just go ahead and just blow it all up. Let them start over. Let them pick up pieces, because clearly they have no problem with standing on the ashes of a burnt down house of cards and still saying that they have shelter. I think that this sort of mentality is one that is problematic, because if the NCAA lets this slide even a little bit, then it is clear that any big time program further down the road can do anything and still be like, well, you guys let UNC off the hook. And I think that's bad. I mean, just to put it in one word, that is bad. Like, we're talking about academic integrity here, and we're talking about it in the form of athletes. And this is not something that, we can sit here and say it's something that it's more of a unknown rule. Everyone knows you're supposed to be in school, you're supposed to remain eligible. And we have movies that talk about academic integrity and how it fluctuates with a football program, but or even a basketball program if you're thinking about blue chips. But we never talk about it in real life. We never think that something like this could happen on such a large scale for such a long time. And I think the NCAA, I think the kicking the can down the road, I think that's done. We have that notice of allegations. This is the third one. This is the strongest one. They cannot back down from this, because if they do, we understand the score and we know what's going to happen. The NCAA needs to react. They need to react harshly, and they need to react swiftly, because after 6 years, the end is near. They need to go ahead. They have the 90 days to respond. And I think 90 days after that to issue the results and the punishment. So we're coming back to you guys in April or May, whenever that time scale, or June, I guess, whenever that time scale is. But you guys better be ready, NCAA, because the time is now. We can't kick the can down the road anymore. There should not be a fourth notice of allegations. This is it. And if you guys think that this is what's going on in the program, and what this is the score here, then you need to go ahead and end this, because college basketball deserves it. I think these UNC, honestly, I'm speaking for these UNC players here, that they're playing on this current team and next year's team. They deserve to know what's going on so they can figure out their future as well. And every single person who proudly, for some reason, carries a UNC degree and is against this, their integrity is in the balance too, because they're sitting there applying to jobs, they're applying to schools, and their whole academic institution is being questioned. And I think that is unfair to the college student, in addition just to the entire ACC. I think the time is now. I think I'm done rambling, but NCAA, do your job.
Well, I
Jason,
think we should point out. Yeah, I think we should point out that this is sort of the first time we've heard from the Committee on Infractions. That everything we've heard thus far from the NCAA was from the NCAA investigators, and the allegations and the such that were initially leveled against UNC were not something that came from the Committee on Infractions. I think this is the first time that the Committee on Infractions has actually weighed in on this. And Bubba Cunningham is right about something. The Committee on Infractions, in this case, is the judge, jury, and executioner. But you know what? That's how the NCAA rules work. That's the way this process happens. And the judge, jury, and executioner has clearly said, here are what we want the charges to look like. And now they will hear back from UNC. UNC will probably make more procedural and jurisdictional arguments because UNC has never once denied that these things actually happened. And UNC will make those procedural and jurisdictional arguments, and the Committee on Infractions will laugh at them, and then it will hammer them. And it will take away titles, probably in multiple sports. My bet is you're going to see titles taken away, not just in men's basketball, but in women's soccer, and you'll see ACC titles and things like that taken away in other sports. And they will put many UNC programs, I think, including football and men's basketball and women's basketball, will be put on probation. Will probably get postseason bans, and probably scholarship reductions as well. But
side note, please believe that UNC. This is my prediction. Whenever the actual final punishments come out, please believe that UNC will be so petty that they will sue in federal court. Guarantee that's going to happen.
Yes, they probably will, but
they're not going to win. But that's exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah, the courts. So I read a little bit about this. The courts are really reluctant to take action against voluntary organizations. That's what the NCAA is. The NCAA, all members of the NCAA are members of the NCAA at their own volition. They've said, yes, I want to be part of this organization. And the rules of voluntary organizations like that are things that the federal courts have always been very, very reluctant to interfere in. A voluntary organization operates under its own rules, and the NCAA is absolutely following its own rules here. And the other thing I would point out is, once this happens, if UNC sues, it has the potential to delay this even longer. Roy Williams has spoken about how much this has impacted recruiting. Look at UNC's recruiting class for next year. The guys they've signed for 2017 in basketball. They've got Jalik Felton, who's related to Raymond Felton, who's a good prospect. He's a top 25, top 30 kid. He's a really nice prospect. Not great, but he's a good prospect. The other three guys that they've signed for next year, none of them are even ranked in the top 100. These are the kind of recruits that UNC usually wouldn't even dream of signing, wouldn't even think about possibly bringing into place. I mean, Duke has guys like Javon DeLaurier and Alex O'Connell, who are sort of top 50 recruits that we bring in. We're sort of like, yeah, okay, you're filling out the roster and maybe you'll develop over time. UNC's bringing in guys who don't even dream of being players in that category. And that's who UNC has for next year. If Carolina sues and makes this thing go on and on and on because the federal courts move really, really, really slowly, then all they do is they make it even harder for them to recruit going forward. If anything, Roy Williams and Larry Fedora want to get this behind them, even if it means postseason ban, even if it means scholarship reductions. I think they just want it finished. And that may be the message that they take to Bubba Cunningham. And they may say, look, yeah, this is unfair. This is bad. They shouldn't have done this to us. Don't sue. Don't delay the process even longer. You're killing us. Because we're rapidly reaching the point where the Carolina basketball team, at least, is just not going to have that many good players left. You look at the guys, you look at their freshman, sophomore classes right now. There's not a lot there.
I hope the NCAA makes them turn in the 2012 ACC Coastal Championship rings that they made. You know what I'm talking about? Those ones that they made when they didn't actually win the division.
I don't see that happening, but that certainly would be entertaining. All right, let's wrap up here. I think we've beaten the nail on UNC quite a bit. So we'll wrap up this week. Normally we do a player of the week, but since it's Christmas, we wanted to mix it up a little bit, and I think we may have done this in the past. We're going to each bestow a gift upon the Duke basketball program or any member of the program. I will start with Jason. Jason, what is your gift for the Duke program this Christmas 2016?
All right, so I'm going first, which is nice because mine is obvious. What I bestow upon the Duke program is health. I don't even know that I need to expand on it that much. I bestow health in 2017 upon the Duke basketball program. And by health, I mean Grayson Allen's toe won't bother him. Jason Tatum will be, at full strength. So will Harry Giles. So will Marcus Bolden. We won't have to deal with any other lingering, nagging injuries. We will have a healthy 2017. And that is my gift for the program. And my bet is that's the thing the program wants more than anything else.
Donald?
So that was my first gift if I had gone first. So I naturally came up with a second one. And the second one focuses on Luke Kennard. I wish for him continued success from the mid-range and from three-point land. From three-point land, he's doing really well. He's shooting almost 43% from three-point. But he is shooting an otherworldly 62% from 15 to 19 feet. You never hear of anybody shooting greater than 50% from that range. And he's shooting 62%, which is astounding. That is the reason why he's playing so well, and that's the reason why I think he should be mentioned among the Player of the Year candidates nationally. Hopefully, this will continue, and I wish for him, because I think right now his scoring has been one of our greatest successes, and I think if that continues, it's going to allow the rest of the team to flow, and for these freshmen who have been injured, as you said, to recover and come along slowly and not have the pressure on them. Grayson Allen will be out a little bit. Luke Kennard's scoring is going to be more important than ever. So for 2017, I wish for continued success for him from anywhere from 15 to beyond 3, because I think that's going to be necessary.
By the way, Donald, so last season, there were numerous times that we commented, I commented especially, that Luke Kennard was having an unusually bad shooting season. Mm-hmm. That you could tell from his form, from his reputation, from everything we knew about him, that last year he shot 32% from 3. And I think coming into this season, one of the things we mentioned was the law of averages said he was bound to have a better year this year to balance out what last year was an aberration of a season in terms of his shooting percentages. He has exceeded even my wildest expectations in that regard. Yeah, you're right. He's ridiculously automatic with his shot. For a guy that takes as many long distance shots as he does to hit, right now he's hitting 52% of his shots in the season. That's crazy. That's a crazy number for a shooting guard.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to wrap it up here with my gift to the program, which is a little more focused. I want one really big blowout victory of Virginia Tech next week, and we'll preview the upcoming ACC slate in an episode next week. But I want a big blowout against Virginia Tech. I want Harry Giles and Jason Tatum to be featured in that game. I want to see the team kind of coming along the way that we expected them to, and I want to see evidence of that. As we mentioned before, we haven't had that 100-point scoring effort yet, and it would be great to see that. So that's what I'm wishing for. Anything else from you guys before we wrap up here for this Christmas episode?
Yeah, I want to remind folks and remind you guys. I started out this podcast talking about, oh my God, it feels a little bit like this team is cursed. It feels like everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. I want to take us back to the early days of the podcast. In January of 2015, it felt like nothing was going right for Duke. Recall that Rashid Suleiman was kicked off the team, and he was our sixth man. He was our depth. And we were forced to play zone because we couldn't play. We were so bad at man-to-man that we had to play zone. And we were looking at the schedule and desperately.
I was going to say Jalil Okafor had fallen off, and Justice Winslow was hurt that we couldn't comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and we were looking at the schedule, and we were desperately searching for a game that Coach K could win for his 1,000th victory. Remember, it took him 3 tries to win his 1,000th game. We thought that, if ever the wheels were coming off, the wheels were coming off. And then it all came together really, really nicely, didn't it? And I feel like I really, really want to believe that we are right now at the moment that Duke was about 3 weeks from now in 2015. and that things are as bad and as bleak as things look. And how can things be bleak for a team that's only lost one game all year? I don't know. But as bad and as bleak as things look right now for this 12-1 team that everyone agrees is still the national title favorite, I think I'm with that last wish, that Christmas gift, Sam. I think things are about to change, and they're about to get a heck of a lot better.
All right, let's hope that all comes true. So to all of you, have a Merry Christmas, have a happy holiday season, and a sweet New Year. For Jason Evans and for Donald Wine, I'm Sam Klein. This is the Duke Basketball Report podcast. We'll talk to you very soon. Duke fan, take us home.